What is going on, guys? It's your boy here. Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to start this off with an apology. My life has been very crazy. 10 hours of work a day has been literally kicking my keister. I've been lacking on the lack of uploads, and I can't, there's no apologetic for it. I had recorded some videos, but they'd be completely outdated by now if I uploaded them. I had a Blue Eyes deck profile that would be completely outdated now, because even if I uploaded any of those, I had a Blue Eyes profile, I had a Rizio profile, but they're all about to be like useless, because in a few days, not even, the next Yu-Gi-Oh! Banlist is like right around the corner. So even if I uploaded those now, they'd be, yeah, kind of like useless. So I'm going to start off by apologizing for that. Next, you're going to probably notice a few other things. If you notice, I'm not currently using my standard Slifer the Sky Dragon mat, which a lot of people see when I do my deck profiles. That's because I got a new mat. And where I get such a luxurious foam giant double-sided mat, that's called Odion, I think it is. It's because I went to my first regionals. As you can see, I even recorded, yeah. I recorded my games, because you can't use a calculator during the regionals. So, yeah. It was in Philly. Two of my friends, JJ and the judge, friend of his, again, the name escapes me at the moment, drove me down there, and I got to participate in my first regionals. In hindsight, it'd be my first regionals. I should have definitely, well, I wanted to play something new, because for the lack of people who don't know update-wise, one of the newest sets, Maze and Masters, released, and a couple of me and my friends opened up a case of it. They literally got seven of the 7 Tachyons. I got 0, but I got all the CRs. There's a lot of decks I have upgraded, and there's a lot of cards I scored down there as well at the Philly Regional. But I decided to bring a deck that actually came out of Maze and Masters. I have been playing this deck offside, obviously not on camera, because I wanted to make sure that it was good for there. There are a couple of things I regret not adding into this deck, and are not getting before the match to put in. But this deck's insane. The person who won Philly Regionals played a version very similar to mine. There's obviously cards that he included in the main deck, or I didn't include, that made the difference. But the same, literally, the deck title that he posted for the first place, that was undefeated, was the exact same that I entered. That deck's name, Odion Fiendsmith. For people who do not know, Odion in the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, he debuted in Battle City as Merrick's lackey, or brother, played a lot of trap monsters. In Maze of Masters, he actually got an archetype, a TCG exclusive archetype. Like, he sees you got the Kelbeck and the Medora and the Gravekeeper stuff. Like, he got, she got exclusive archetype. Now, Odion got his archetype inside Maze of Masters, and it is insane. I had to dig out a card from 2006. I had to trade somebody for a copy of it. I literally drove over to his house just to get a copy and put a couple of cards in his mailbox just for it. But I'm going to go through and explain to you guys this new insanely powerful deck. I know it's been popping up everywhere, and I'm showcasing you the version I brought to Philly. I will tell you this right now. I'm working on a bunch of different versions for this deck right now, and I'm testing and theorizing what will happen, like, post-ban list, because I don't want to post anything new, like my new ideas, until I know what the ban list is going to, like, impact. So, yeah. Without further ado, let's get right into it. And this deck is 44 cards. By the way, the Philly Regional was 10 rounds of Swiss. I only got to play 6 because I didn't get cut into the top 64. So, let's go. Starting with the monsters. The Odion himself in this game, in this deck. 3 copies of the Man with the Mark. The Man with the Mark is the main starter for the Odion deck, or I like to call it the Odion deck. A lot of people call it Apophis. So the Man of the Mark is a level 4 Earth spellcaster that, if it's normal or special summon, can add Temple of the Kings or a spell trap that mentions it from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. I never really use the send to the graveyard effect, but apparently that comes up when you're trying to use the next monster's like resummon effect, which I'll showcase after I'm done explaining the Man with the Mark. But playing 3 of this card is absolutely essential because it's one of your main starters. It has a second effect where it's if you control Temple of the Kings, this card and Apophis monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So they have to get rid of the Temple of the Kings wherever it is on your field. So having that protected is going to make this like your deck solid. But yeah, this guy was the main normal summon of the entire deck. I didn't want to capitalize too much on normal summons. In fact, there was only like really one other normal summon I actually had included in this deck, because the rest of it was just like kind of controlling. Next up is the Searcher of the Man of the Mark, and also the second monster that I mentioned that I would like to recover. And that is 3 copies of Anubis, the Last Judge, and out of my opening of the case, I managed to pull a CR copy of Anubis, the Last Judge, and it is absolutely gorgeous. So, Anubis, the Last Judge cannot be normal summon or set. It must first be special from your hand or graveyard while you have 3 or more cards in your graveyard with different names that are Temple of the Kings and or traps. By placing 2 on the bottom of the deck in any order, you can, by placing 2 of those on the bottom of the deck in any order. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, add 1 Man with the Mark from your deck to your hand. If a spell or trap you control is destroyed by card effect, you can target 1 card your control is destroyed. You can only use each effect of Anubis Last Judge once per turn. This guy, for being a level 8 Fiend, Earth Fiend, is actually crazy good. Free search for the Man with the Mark, so you don't have to like bother doing no crazy like small world combo to get to it. Yeah, it's just a phenomenal card. I should have really optimized more traps in my deck than what I did, but I went to my first, being my first region, I wanted to make sure I had all the counters I needed. So I really optimized for more of a hand trap build. Yeah. But I like having a proactive version of this deck. The next card in the deck, if you know Odion in the show, he had that Scorpion, Mystical Beast Serket. Well, now that Scorpion got upgraded into Merciless Scorpion of Serket, which I also managed to acquire a CR from out of the case, and again, it looks fantastic. But you only play 1 of this card because it's searchable, and it's also cannot be normal summon or set, but it doesn't have a great like searching effect like the Anubis Last Judge does. What Merciless Scorpion Serket has the ability to do is it must be special summoned from your hand by banishing a level 10 or higher monster from your hand or deck while you control Temple of the Kings. You only special summon Serket once per turn, and during the main phase, once per turn, you can add 1 Temple of the Kings or 1 spell that mentions it from your deck to your hand. And if this card battles a monster at the start of the damage step, you can destroy that opponent's monster, and if you do, this card gains attack equal to half that destroyed monster's original attack. This guy is just phenomenal. You mainly search this card out midway through combo. If you open it, it's okay. But, yeah, really, there's not much. By the way, the banishing card is like you show the Serket and then you banish it. I'm pretty sure like that it's like Diabellstar, the Black Witches, where you just send a card from your hand or field to the graveyard to special summon Diabellstar. Except now it's like Serket banishing 1 from your deck or hand to summon the Serket. I think it's the same same timing. So yeah, at least that's how it was ruled. Next is one of my mistakes that I made, but also one of the best ideas I brought. What deck cannot abuse this engine is there is none. Fiendsmith. So I ended up playing 2 Fiendsmith Engraver because I only have 2 Engraver, and that was my misplay. I should have definitely went out and bought a third, because the third absolutely came up. Instead, I replaced that third Engraver with 2 copies of Lacrima, the Crimson Tears, and while in hindsight, this gave me another normal summon, which actually I thought was pretty good. The third Engraver should have definitely been included in the deck, because that is, was the best thing I possibly could have done. But yeah, there's no deck in the meta right now that cannot abuse this engine. It is absolutely disgusting. I'm pretty sure it's one of the few things that's definitely going to get hit on the next ban list. But I played it because it was the infinite resource, and if it's available, I should be playing it. I mean, come on. If I had a chance of winning, I was probably not going to play this in some way, shape, or form. Also, then we have the one Fabled Lurie. And then now we have a monster that a lot of people use in trap decks, but there is a version that, if you know the first version of this deck actually got topped. He played a copy of this with a monster called Gallic Granite to search this, but I just took this card into the deck as a protection for back row against stuff like Duster. But in hindsight, the person who went undefeated actually side decked this card and didn't main deck it. And that's 1 copy of Lord of the Heavenly Prison. You reveal this guy in your hand until the end of your next turn, until the end of your opponent's next turn. You basically, all your spell and traps face down cannot be destroyed by card effects. And if a spell or trap that set was activated except during the damage step, you can special this card from your hand. And if you do, you can set 1 spell or trap from your deck, but banish it during the standby phase of the next turn, the end phase of the next turn. This is 1 requirement card you can banish off for the summon of the Circuit. Also, Anubis the Last Judge, is also level 10 or higher. You can also banish for Circuit. But what's one of the best level 10s we have access to that pretty much every deck can run right now? That would be Nibiru, the Primal Being, into our hand trap lineup. It's also searchable if you are playing Gallic Granite. Then obviously for the rest of my hand traps, it's just pretty straightforward. 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 copies of Effect Veiler, 3 Drone Lockbird, because this card is absolutely insane in the meta right now. That's also it for the rest of the monsters. Pretty kind of straightforward. Let's go on the spells or traps. For the spells, the new field spell for Odion, 3 copies of Treasures of the Kings. So this card is actually probably like the next best starter you can have in the deck. So first off, Treasures of the Kings. When it's activated, you set an Apophis trap from your deck. Period. So as soon as you activate it, if it resolves, you set an Apophis trap. Done. This card names becomes Temple of the Kings while it's in the field zone. So there's your there's really 4 Temple of the Kings you're playing in the deck, except this card does not have you can activate a trap card the turn it's set, which kind of makes it a little bit evenly balanced. And that means there are some cases where I wish I had more copies of the original Temple of the Kings, because this deck have a lot of new trap monsters you want to be proactive with. So I'm still debating on how I want to ratio that. But what the rest of this card can do is, if you have 2 set cards on your field or a trap in your graveyard, you can add 1 monster that mentions Temple of the Kings from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 Temple of the Kings Treasures of the Kings per turn. And since we want to see this card pretty often, because this guy can search our Man of the Mark, our Anubis, we basically played 4 of it because we play a long copy of Terraforming. Then, of course, the 1 copy of Temple of the Kings. I kind of wanted to play 2 copies of this card, but my deck was 44 count already, which is why I didn't upgrade it, because I wanted to make sure I was seeing my consistency. But in hindsight, going forward, I might up this card too, because it was very good proactive wise, especially for what I how I like playing the deck. This card's also very old, so I don't think I need to explain this guy's effect. Then for other stuff, we played a simple Product Prosperity for consistency, 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent for going second, and also Draw Power, Stealing Hand Reveals, Called by the Grave for hand trap counters. Another fumble. I only played 1 Triple Tactics Fiendsmith's Tract. I should have definitely got myself a second one because it was another good searcher. So yeah. So yeah, I definitely misplayed on that. That's all for the spells. For traps, obviously, for the rest of the Fiendsmith package, we played one copy of Fiendsmith in Paradise. I actually never resolved this card's effects, so, and honestly, I probably should just subbed it out for a Fiendsmith's track and be fine. 3 copies of Infinite Permanence. Simple, best, a good hand trap. Great for locking out back row. Then we have a new monster. Embodiment of Apophis got an upgrade, or a new cousin here. We got Apophis the Serpent. So this card also just came out of Maze of Masters. Also, this artwork just basically sends out of Apophis like to the Shadow Realm. So this card becomes a normal monster reptile Earth, level 4, 1600 attack, 1800. It's got the same stats of Embodiment of Apophis, but it has a better effect. Then, after you summon it, you can set one Apophis trap from your deck, except Apophis the Serpent, and it can be activated this turn. It literally says, so this card, you don't have to have Temple of the Kings in order to activate the Apophis you set off of this. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one original embodiment of Apophis from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Apophis the Serpent once per turn. And this card is phenomenal. Now, I personally did decide to play copy, since this card searches it out, of a regular copy of Embodiment of Apophis. The first place player did not play this card, though, and I don't know whether or not that's a good or not bad thing, because I personally like having the different names, especially since the fusion monster says two monsters. Since this card said the monsters for the extra deck, the Divine Serpent Apophis, which is the main thing, one of the best fusion monsters we have for this deck, it must either be fusion summoned or special summoned by tributing 2 Apophis monsters, and its fusion requirements are 2 monsters that mention Temple of the Kings. So, you have to tribute 2 Apophis monsters for this card's summoning requirement. So, I like to have more Apophis names, honestly, and I only played 5, including these 3 here. The other ones in the deck were actually a card that actually got reprinted in the Maze of Masters, and that's Apophis the Swamp Deity. So Swamp Deity here is like a walking Desiree, I want to say, because it summons itself during the main phase, and if it's after it's summoned, all in the same effect, like an Alzette of the White Forest. If you can negate all, then you can negate the effects of face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of other continuous traps you control until the end of this turn. So, just being able to like stop cards activating. So, like if I have Apophis and a regular Apophis, and then I summon Swamp Deity, I'm negating 2 cards on the field. Now, this card I'm about to reveal is the card I have to dig out from 2006, and it came out from Cross Souls. I never owned a single copy of this card, and the fact that it's a common, I had to dig for it because it was played in like every single version, was ludicrous. I never want to have to dig for this card again. Statue of Anguish Pattern. If I told you how scrambled I was to find a single copy of this card for the event, I might have been a bald chicken plucked from every white feather. This card was a pain in the butt to find, but it was so worth it when I did find it. So, Anguish Pattern. It summons itself as an effect monster. Rock, Earth, level 7, 0 attack, 2500 defense. Great shield. This card is also still a trap. By the way, none of these guys take up the spell and trap card zone anymore from like an old ruling. So, you can set a spell or trap to the same zone they summoned from. No problem. So, if it's summoned by this way, it cannot be targeted or by an opponent's card effect while you control another trap card that is a monster. If a card is special summoned from your spell and trap zone to the monster zone, while this card is a monster, you can target one card on the field, destroy it. It's immediate. So, just for example, if I have Statue of Anguish Pattern faced up, which I like to activate during the draw phase, and we have a set copy of Apophis the Serpent. If it's during our opponent's main phase and they summon a monster, we can go Apophis the Serpent, summon Apophis the Serpent. On resolution, Apophis the Serpent sets a copy of another serpent, let's just say Swamp Deity here. And then immediately, Statue of Anguish Pattern pops. all off of the one summon. So as this card is setting, it's also popping with Anguish Pattern. That's criminal for how good that is. So Statue of Anguish Pattern is absolutely a necessity no matter what build you play in this deck. And we also got a crazy good counter trap card. And the card is called Verdict of Anubis. Kind of like Judgment of Anubis, but Verdict of Anubis. So, what Verdict of Anubis is, this card, I really think you only need to play one because it's also searchable. When your opponent activates a spell or trap, while you control 3 or more other spell and traps, do not have to be face up. They can be set. You negate the activation if you do destroy that card. Then, if you control Temple of the Kings, you can destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible. Then inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the total original attack of those destroyed monsters. You can only use one once per turn. Basically, nuke and burn. Nuke, burn, spell and trap, negate. Phenomenal card. I love this card a lot. I use this to negate Rise Cross's activation a few times. So yeah. And then the last card I decided to main in the deck was a 1 copy of Destructive Daruma Cannon. So, there's Daruma Cannon. The why I decided to play Daruma Cannon. First off, it's settable off of the copy of Lord of the Heavenly Prison after you activate a trap. The second thing is, after you activate the Daruma Cannon, when a trap monster, let's just say, you have Apophis, a Swamp Deity face up on the field. If I activate Destructive Daruma Cannon, instead of this card going to the graveyard or becoming face down a monster on field, it actually gets sent back to your spell and trap card zone, so you can activate it again next turn. So essentially, you're losing nothing while your opponent's link monsters are going face down and you're interrupting their combo plays. So I thought that was a very good tech, and honestly, the card came in so clutch. That's it for the main deck, guys. Let's go on to the extra deck. Talking about that one, starting off with that one Apophis monster that I literally talked about, that fusion monster that was there. They did get another fusion monster, a Sarkhet fusion monster, but it unfortunately does not make the cut into this deck. So, the fusion monster that was absolutely cracked is 2 copies of Divine Serpent Apophis. Like I already mentioned, starting requirement takes you 2 Apophis monsters. But what its effect is, what its secondary effect is absolutely what makes this card phenomenal. So, its secondary effect is once per turn you can tuck it up to 3 Apophis traps with different names in your graveyard, which is another reason why I wanted to play all 3 names, which is Apophis, the Swamp Deity, Embodiment of Apophis, and Serpent of Apophis, because those are the only 3 Apophis traps in existence at the moment. So the fact that I had that, I wanted to really max out on the names. Have different names. So once per turn, if a trap card is activated, except during the damage step, does not have to be yours. You can target 1 card your opponent controls and destroy it. Now that's a once per turn effect, but if your opponent activates a trap during their turn, or if you activate a trapped card during their turn, boom, a Divine Serpent Apophis can pop a card. And being able to reset the Apophis trap so they can be used again, value. Absolute value. Carrying on, we got our Fiendsmith stuff. I'm going to breeze through these because you guys have seen these used before in my deck profiles. Obviously, I played Lagoon Day, Sequence, 1 copy of Moon of the Closed Heaven, of course, Requiem, copy of Triple D, Wave King, High Caesar. I honestly considered replacing this with Goblin's Crazy Beast because there were other level 6s like the Apophis, the Swamp Deity. I also considered, now that I know it's an idea in the deck, Evil Soul Lars. Because if you use them with the Apophis, the Swamp Deity as a material, it's actually kind of free. And honestly, I got shocked by that. Like, because I have Evil Soul Lars in my binder too, and I love it, and I just didn't think of it. Because I also thought Caesar was just like, everyone else was going to play it, so I kind of just like flew over my head and then some. Obviously, then of course we have the 1 copy of Necroquip Princess. Necroquip Princess actually is more value in this deck than any others because of Necroquip Princess's effect, aside from like being able to summon it for another level 6 to make Caesar. The effect of if a monster is sent, focus. If a monster is sent from the hand to the graveyard to activate a card effect, which it will be, you can activate one of these effects. Crit one of this monster has a crit spell, gives a 500 attack. Blah. Draw 1 card. That is the better play. because, ironically, Anubis the Last Judge sends itself from the hand of the graveyard to search Man with the Mark. So, if you have Necroclear Princess and you activate Anubis the Last Judge to send it to the hand of the graveyard to add Man with the Mark, Necroclear Princess will immediately, after you add the Man with the Mark, allow you to draw another card, essentially +1ing your entire hand. Rest of the deck. For the rest of the Link monsters, I decided to play SP Little Knight because it just gets played in like every single deck. Next, probably the star of the deck, Silhouette Hat Rabbit. I don't think there was a single game I didn't make this card, because this card being able to summon and then set any continuous set one continuous trap in your deck that can special summon itself as a monster, which this deck is like literally thrives around. This card was made for this deck practically. Setting be able to set Anguish pattern directly to the deck, Apophis, or like this is what I set mostly out of the deck with Silhouette Hat Rabbit's effect, was the Anguish pattern like every single time. And then we got Link Spider here, which we can use to link off some of the trap monsters in order to get a second effect monster for maybe a Silhouette Hat Rabbit or the SP Little Knight to get there. So yeah. In all honesty, this extra deck was actually pretty damn good. Then, of course, for our fusion monsters, obviously, since it's a Fiendsmith deck, we have the Desiree. Next, we have a card that also came released out of Maze of Masters, and it's probably one of my favorite fusion monsters come out of Maze of Masters, because it's also technically a form of a zombie, and that is the Duke of Demise. For those who do not remember, this card actually appeared in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series in, I believe it's the duel against Bones in the Graveyard with Evil Bakura. And this card was made. But it never got into physical copy until this set. It takes 2 Fiend and or zombie monsters. And ironically, which people don't know this, the Duke of Demise can actually be made off of Fiendsmith sequence, because it says you can fusion summon a Fiend fusion monster. This is a Fiend fusion monster. So you could shuffle back 2 Fiend and or zombie monsters. We have the zombie monster in the form of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring if you were trying to shuffle that back. But the other one you can use is just in general shuffling back the Anubis, the Fiendsmith, and the rest other Fiendsmith parts. Like you could shuffle back Desiree and Requiem back into the extra deck to make Duke of Demise. And Duke of Demise has a crazy other back effects. So you have to pay 500 life points to destroy this card. That's like any regular assignment requirement. For a card this good, that's worth it. It cannot be destroyed in battle. Period. Like that, there's no requirement for that. You can only use each of the following effects of the Duke of Demise once per turn. During the main phase, you can immediately, after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 monster. It doesn't say in addition to, but I'm assuming this is in addition to your regular normal summon. It's a graveyard effect, though, is you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 level 4 or higher Fiend or zombie monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. You know what this tells me? If this card gets sent to the graveyard, like somebody, oh my god, Dogmatica Maximus is me, and we have Anubis the Last Judge sitting in our graveyard, we'll sit in our graveyard if we need follow-up, we dump the Duke of Demise, then during our next turn, we draw for turn, activate Duke of Demise's effect, banish it from the graveyard, grab the Anubis the Last Judge, and add it back to our hand, which is just simply free. And the last remaining cards in the deck were 1 copy of Star Slayer, Typhon, Sky Crisis, just a generically good card, and for Ultimate Slayer and our side deck, 1 copy of Meralurgic Aggregator, also against Maximus decks. So, yeah, I think the extra deck was actually pretty clean on my choices, and now let's just show off what I played for the side deck. For the side deck, as I just mentioned, I had Ultimate Slayer in the side deck, card that we need to counter Ryziels, and now with 7 Ascension and 7 Tachyon running around, this just becomes more and more important to have this card, because it just outs the Xyz monsters, and dumping Aggregator, which again is actually a card I think is probably going to get touched, or maybe X Ryziel is. That's more unlikely though, because Ryziel is getting new support coming up, but this card being able to dump it off of X is absolutely a problem because it just negates a card in the field. Or from Ultimate Slayer. Then because I wanted to see some my spells or set some traps out more consistently, I decided to also side deck 3 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust, which I do not regret. This card was actually phenomenal. A card that's been popping up a lot lately in a lot of decks is Coppery of Gravekeeper's Inscription. Now, I decided to... This card... I only have 1 copy of this card, and I know a lot of people played it. Play more than 1. But it's at the start of the main phase 1. You can apply one of the following effects until the end of your opponent's next turn. Neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard, which is detrimental to anybody. Neither can player can banish cards from their graveyard. It doesn't really hurt me as much, but it also... There's not a whole lot of decks that like doing that. And neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard. That means I cannot do Anubis/Judge. But I'm telling you right now, that means you can't use your Fiendsmith stuff either. And I absolutely... I played Gravekeeper's Inscription because I knew it was going to hurt my deck, my opponent's deck. But it also hurt me as well. And I do regret doing that. But the card is so good that you kind of have to play it. Then obviously we have like our back row removal, which is like Duster. And of course 1 copy of Lightning Storm. These were the 3 normal spells I decided to play. If you don't like Inscription, you can easily replace it for another copy of Lightning Storm, which is what I ended up replacing it for. Then, of course, we have to respect the Malice matchup, so I decided to main deck 3 copies of Artifact Lancia. There was another benefit for me playing the Lancia inside of this deck. Because we were playing the copy of Lord of Heavenly Prison, we actually were able to set, not the Dimensional Prison, but the copy of Artifact Sanctum from our deck, so that we can have another way to get access to Lancia pretty dang fast, too, if we need it against the Malice matchup. And then, like I just revealed, I had Dimensional Barrier and Imperial Iron Wall as the last remaining cards in my side deck. Setting this off of the Lord of the Heavenly Prison does 2 things, especially against the Malice matchup. For one, you actually cannot banish this card due to the Lord of Heavenly Prison effect. You have to banish the card set off of this effect during the end phase of your next turn. And so, because this card says neither player can banish cards, you actually will not banish Imperial Iron Wall. So, and then it's also just in grid against Malice, because that means they just stop all their banishing plays. That's it for the deck profile, guys. It's pretty straightforward, simple. I cannot wait to see what else I can cook up with this deck, and I'm going to try to get back on a regular uploading schedule. I am sorry. Work takes a lot out of me. Working 10-hour shifts a day, Monday through Thursday, just kind of drains my whole body. But yeah, cannot wait to keep experimenting with Temple of the Kings here and Odion in general. This deck is growing in popularity like every single day after its release, and the artwork is sick. The play style is also very unique, and it's interesting to see how this deck will take form of the meta. Especially since the ban list is literally right our corner. I think this deck is a safe pickup to be picking up for the meta. So for that ban list. So if you guys are looking to get into the game, this deck is I want to say it's pretty affordable at the moment. So yeah, that's it for me, guys. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. Yeah, this is your boy Yeet signing out. Peace.